Rain hammered the glass over the ambulance bay, turning the sodium lights outside into long yellow smears. It was 2:59 in the morning in New Orleans, the hour when even a city that hated sleep usually took a breath. The doors of St. Augustine General's emergency room slid open with a tired hiss. "Coming through, gurney in, make space." Two EMTs burst into the trauma bay, pushing a stretcher that looked too small for the body on it. The man was tall, broad in the shoulders, shirt cut-away chests, streaked in drying blood and fresh red. Someone had tried to pack some of the wounds in the field. It had not worked. 18 gunshot wounds, one of the EMTs panted. Lost pulse 3 minutes out. The monitors were not yet attached, but the silence above the bed said enough. No beeping, no rhythm, just the squeak of wet soles on the floor and the rattle of metal instruments. Riley Hart was already in the room. She was where she always was on nights like this, halfway between one patient and the next, gloves snapped on her, pulled back so tight it never moved. Her scrubs were ordinary navy blue. Her eyes were not. They were steady and a little distant, as if part of her was standing somewhere else entirely listening to something no one else could hear. A resident rushed in with a cart, breathless. "What do we got? What do we got?" "Navy," the EMT said. "Name is Mercer, Eli. Took multiple rounds in a parking lot off Claiborne. Vitals tanked halfway here. We did compressions until his ribs started to go." The resident glanced at the man's chest, the mottled bruises, the skin already turning gray around the lips. "All right," he said, voice too soft for the room. "Let's call it. Time of death is—" He looked up at the wall clock. Riley's gaze slid to the clock too, then to the man's hands. There was dirt under his fingernails, not from a hospital, not from the city. The smell rising from him was metal and burned cloth and something else she knew too well. Her right hand was resting on the empty bed beside her. Her fingers tapped once, twice, 3 times, then fell into a slow pattern. 4 counts, then 4 again, the same rhythm as rain on the roof, the same rhythm as breath. Someone shoved a monitor stand closer. An intern fumbled for the leads. "Forget it," the resident muttered. "He's gone." The room started to thin. People shifted backward just a fraction mentally, already moving to the next crisis on the board. "No," Riley said. It was not loud, but it was the one sound in the room that did not tremble. Heads turned. The resident frowned. "What?" Riley stepped in close enough to smell the whiskey sweat and cordite clinging to the man's skin. "He's warm," she said, pupils still reactive. "We lost pulse 3 minutes ago," the EMT said. He sounded tired, more tired than angry. "Then he is 3 minutes late, not gone," Riley replied. The resident's mouth tightened. "Hart, we cannot waste resources on a body. We do our best and we move on." She looked at the man's chest at the dark holes where rounds had gone in at different angles. Some shallow, some deep. She counted them without meaning to. 1, 2, 10, 17, 18. Her fingers stopped tapping. "Strip him," she said. "I need clear access." The resident hesitated. Dr. Keller, the attending on call, appeared in the doorway just then, pulling his glasses from his pocket. "What is it?" he asked. "Mercer Eli, yeah," the resident said. "GSW times 18, no pulse for minutes. I was calling it." Keller's eyes went from the clock to the body to Riley. "Hart?" he asked. He had worked enough nights with her to know when she dug in. "We are not done," she said. There was no heat in her voice. Just flat certainty, like she was reading from a chart only she could see. Keller sighed once the sound of a man who knew what rules said, and what his gut said, and how often they argued. "You have 60 seconds, he said. "If I do not see something change, we stop." Riley nodded. She moved. She planted her left hand at the base of Eli's sternum, not to start standard compressions, but to feel. Her right fingers slid between ribs, not blindly, but with the careful knowledge of someone who had put hands inside far worse situations. She angled her fingertips slightly off-center, hunting for a place not on any diagram in a civilian textbook. "Stop the bagging," she said. "I need to feel the chest wall." The respiratory tech froze, then obeyed. The room held its breath with him. The only sound was the rain and the faint buzz of the lights. Under her palm, the bone felt solid, the skin slick. Under her fingers, there was nothing. Then, because she was still for long enough, there was the faintest tension. A twitch. A stubborn little refusal to stay still. "There," she murmured. She blocked it gently, changing the angle of pressure, coaxing rather than forcing. It was a technique they had drilled until their hands cramped in a place where helicopters never landed empty. A way to interrupt a fatal kind of rhythm and give the heart a different line to fall into. The resident swallowed. "Hart, this is not protocol." "Protocol is for when we have time," she said. "Count." No one moved. For a second it felt as if the whole room leaned with her. Then the monitor still attached to half the leads found something to cling to. "Beep." The sound was thin, then gone again. The line stuttered, caught, stuttered. Her fingers adjusted, no wasted motion. Beep! A second one barely there. The respiratory tech sucked in air as if someone had hit his chest instead. Sinus rhythm trying to form, he whispered. Bag him, Riley said, now. The room snapped back into motion. The intern jumped for the ventilator bag. The EMT moved back in. Keller came to the head of the bed with a laryngoscope. All right, Keller said, voice now sharp and alive. If he wants to stay, we will help him. He did not ask again why or how, he just worked. They stripped the rest of Eli's clothing, revealing old scars along his flank, a long, pale line across his shoulder blade, powder burns in patterns that did not match the fresh wounds. Riley saw them and filed them away. Someone had tried to kill this man before. Someone had failed. Her hand stayed steady. Pack, clamp, seal. Each movement clean, economical, the way one works when there is no backup and no second chance. Pressure rising, someone called. Heart rate 30, 40, 50. The numbers climbed like a reluctant man on bad stairs. They got him to the operating room alive. Barely. Long enough for surgeons to take over for anesthesiologists to murmur to each other in numbers only they understood. When the doors to the OR swung shut, the adrenaline in Riley's veins finally ebbed, leaving behind a familiar hollow ache. The night did not give her time to feel it. The trauma pager chirped again, a bar fight, then a crash on the interstate, a diabetic crash, a teenager with a stab wound in his thigh, eyes blown wide with fear. Riley moved from room to room, chart to chart, bed to bed. She cleaned blood off her arms in the sink, then rolled up her sleeves and did it again. She closed a jagged cut on a dock worker's arm. Each stitch neat and identical, the thread biting into skin the way it had once bitten into flesh, dusted with desert sand. At one point she caught Keller watching her from the doorway of another bay. His expression was not suspicious. Not yet. It was the wary curiosity of someone who had been to war and recognized echoes. By the time the sun began to crawl over the low roofs outside, everything smelled like bleach and stale coffee. The worst of the chaos had passed. The whiteboard in the nurse's station showed more discharges than arrivals for the first time in hours. In the break room, someone had left the television on. A local news anchor spoke in a cheerful morning voice about parades, about flood control projects, about the weather. Then the banner at the bottom changed. Miracle Night at St. Augustine, away it read. Nurse credited with saving multiple gunshot victims, including off-duty servicemen. A blurry screenshot from security footage popped up. A figure in a mask and cap bent over a bed, hands pressed to a bare chest. It could have been anyone. It was her. One of the other nurses glanced at Riley, then at the screen. That has to be you, she said. They should at least get your name right. Riley reached for the remote and turned the volume down until the anchor's voice was just moving lips and soft crackle. Patients are trying to sleep, she said. She checked the time, shift over. The hallway outside the break room smelled like cooling coffee and disinfectant. Nurses headed for the parking garage shuffled past those arriving with half-zipped coats and travel mugs. The world outside was turning pink at the edges, the rain now a thin mist that blurred the line between street and sky. Riley stopped at the threshold of the ER. Behind her, the monitors carried on beeping in patient, uneven songs. Someone laughed at a joke she could not hear. A stretcher wheel squeaked. All of it blended into a single rough rhythm. Ahead of her, through the glass doors, the city waited with wet sidewalks and a sky trying to lighten. She stood there for a moment, hands loose at her sides, eyes taking in both worlds without preference. The automatic doors whooshed open for someone else, leaving a gust of damp air brushing her face. Riley stepped through and let the doors close behind her. The rain had cooled. She pulled her hood up and walked toward the garage, the dog tag in her pocket, knocking lightly against her thigh with each step as steady as a heartbeat. St. Augustine General always looked different in daylight. The hard edges softened the glare through the lobby windows, turned the scuffed linoleum into something almost warm. By 9 in the morning, the night shift had vanished into showers and beds, and the day people had claimed the place with fresh scrubs and long-to-do lists. The emergency entrance was busier than the front door. Delivery vans idled at the curb. Orderlies smoked behind the dumpsters, squinting against the rising sun. 2 black SUVs rolled into the ambulance lane and stopped as if they belonged there. The drivers climbed out first, scanning the lot with the quiet alertness of people used to being targets. Then the back doors opened and 2 agents stepped down. One was tall, late 30s or early 40s suit, rumpled enough to suggest he had been awake since yesterday. The other was younger, sharper at the edges, hair pulled into a tight knot, tablet already in hand. They walked in without speaking to each other. The automatic doors parted for them, releasing them into the bright, antiseptic cool of the ER waiting area. The receptionist looked up from her keyboard fingers, still moving out of habit. "Can I help you?" The taller agent offered a half smile and a badge. Agent Marcus Doyle, he said. This is Agent Priya Shah, Bureau of Strategic Health Security. The title landed with a soft thud. The receptionist squinted at the ID, then at them. Is that like CDC? She asked. Sort of, Marcus said. We look at where violence and medicine shake hands. Priya tapped the tablet screen once impatient. We are here to speak with the nurse on duty last night, she said. Riley Hart. The receptionist frowned, eyes flicking to the schedule pinned beside her monitor. Hart Riley, she read. Night shift, yeah, she clocked out around 7. You just missed her. Priya's mouth tightened. I do not like that phrase, she said. Marcus rested his elbows lightly on the counter. Anyone else who worked with her last night, he asked. Charge nurse attending anyone who actually saw what happened in trauma 1 and 2. The receptionist nodded toward the back. Dr. Keller is still here, she said. He took over rounds after the rush, and half the night shift is still in the break room pretending they are not awake. Marcus thanked her, and they headed for the secured doors. The badge he flashed at the security guard had more weight than a polite request. The guard buzzed them through. Inside the ER, the energy was different from the chaos of the night. It was brisk, organized, the buzz of phones and pagers layered over the low murmur of voices. Nurses moved from room to room with portable computers, carts clattered. Someone laughed at something in triage. Priya watched everything. Nobody is panicking, she said under her breath. Why would they be? Marcus replied. Their miracle is still alive. That is exactly why they should be, she said. Miracles attract attention. Attention attracts people like us. They found Dr. Keller at a computer in the corner of the nurses' station, reading lab results with the grim focus of a man trying to decide how bad a bad number really was. He looked up when they approached, eyes automatically scanning the badges. If this is about the donor board, we are already full, he said. Marcus smiled. We are federal doctor, not fundraising, he said. We heard you had an interesting night. Keller's shoulders slumped a millimeter. That is one word for it, he said. You hear about the guy with all the holes or the other 8 that should have died and did not. All of it, Priya said, but mostly yes, Mr. Mercer. Keller rubbed his eyes with thumb and forefinger. He is in ICU, he said, breathing on his own for the last hour, surprised everyone except Hart. Riley's name sat in the air between them. Marcus leaned on the counter. Tell me about her, he said. Keller hesitated. He glanced toward the break room door, half open, letting out the smell of burnt coffee and the sound of a daytime talk show. She started here about a year ago, he said. Night shift only, no drama, no excuses, good with the rough ones, better with the ones everyone else has given up on. Priya swiped on the tablet, pulling up a personnel file. Her file says she worked community clinics overseas, she said. No specifics. That is what she told HR, Keller said. You know how it is. Half the staff say they did relief somewhere. Haiti, Honduras, take your pick. Except she does not move like a volunteer, Marcus said. She moves like she expects someone to shoot at her. Keller looked at him more closely. You noticed that from a file, he asked. Marcus did not answer. He turned instead toward the break room. Inside, the night nurses clustered around a table, shoulders slumped, eyes ringed in red, the air thick with the chemical smell of powdered creamer. A small television in the corner showed the same morning anchor from earlier, now talking about a bakery opening in the quarter. One of the nurses, a woman with bright pink sneakers and a messy bun, looked up as Marcus and Priya stepped in. Uh-oh, she said, we are in trouble. Not yet, Marcus said. We are just looking for insight. We already gave all our statements, another nurse said. Charting times meds, all of it. Check with charge. Priya set the tablet on the table screen dark for now. We are not here for paperwork, she said. We are here to talk about Riley Hart. The pink sneaker nurse's expression softened. She's not in trouble, is she? She asked. Because whatever she did, she saved people, a lot of people. That is exactly why we are interested, Marcus said. Tell me what you saw. They told him. Bits of their stories overlapped and contradicted, not about the facts, but about the feel. One thought Riley looked angry when she stepped in. Another insisted she was calm as stone. All agreed on 2 things. She did not hesitate. And she did something no one had seen in this hospital. She put her fingers right here, the pink sneaker nurse said, tapping her own chest just left of center. Not like compressions, like she was listening for something. Then the monitor started beeping and we all just stared. Priya asked the question no one else wanted to. Did she use any medication that was not on the crash cart list? There was a short silence. I did not see her pull anything, Shiva, the charge nurse said finally. But she knew exactly where everything was, including the stuff we do not use, unless a trauma surgeon is yelling for it. Priya sat back. Thank you, she said. You have been helpful. When they left the break room, Marcus did not turn toward ICU yet. He detoured to an empty office, closed the door with a soft click, and sat at the desk without asking permission. The computer screen lit up when he brushed a key. Hospital logo login prompt. He did not need it. He pulled his own laptop from his bag and opened it. The connection to the federal network took a moment, the spinning icon reflecting in his eyes. When the portal finally loaded, he typed with quick, economical strokes. Hart Riley, Nurse, New Orleans. Nothing. No national license registry. No social profile shadows. The system knew about her only because the hospital had typed her name into a local HR form. He changed databases. Military personnel, medical corps. He typed again, Hart Riley. For a second, he thought nothing would appear here either. Then a single result stamped with an old classification level that made his pulse skip once surfaced. Lieutenant Riley Jane Hart, United States Navy Medical Corps, assigned to Tactical Resuscitation Unit, status killed in action, Helmand Province, 2011. Marcus opened the file. The photo was 10 years and a war ago. The hair was longer, tucked under a soft cap, the face a little rounder, but the eyes were the same, steady, watching the camera as if it might explode. She was standing beside a man in desert camouflage, his arms slung casually around her shoulders, his grin sun-wide. The caption under the image gave his name, Captain Daniel Hart. Marcus read the words killed in action, twice once, under her name, once under Daniel's, and felt a familiar pressure behind his eyes, the one that came whenever the clean lines of a report scraped against the messy reality of what he had just seen. Someone knocked lightly on the office door. It opened before he answered. Priya stepped in, her brows drawn together. ICU says Mercer is asking for the nurse, she said. He woke up enough to swear at someone. That must mean he is stable. Marcus kept his gaze on the screen a moment longer. Did you find her address? He asked. Priya shook her head. HR gave me a street and an apartment number, she said. Lease started last summer, nothing before that, no credit history older than 2 years. Whoever she was, she started being Riley Hart very recently. Marcus closed the laptop. On the dark screen, his own reflection hung for a second beside the ghost of Riley in uniform. We are looking for a nurse, he said quietly, more to himself than to Priya, but someone filed a death report on a lieutenant with the same face. Priya exhaled. So what is she now? She asked. Marcus slipped the laptop back into his bag. That, he said, is what we are going to find out. Outside beyond the hospital walls, the city was drying under a pale blue sky. Somewhere in one of the upper floors, Eli Mercer lay listening to the soft beeps of machines and trying to put a name to the hands that had pulled him back. Riley's apartment was 3 floors up, in a building that had probably been pretty once, before the paint peeled and the mailboxes gave up trying to stay shut. The hallway smelled like old carpet cleaner and fried food from someone else's kitchen. Inside her unit, it smelled like nothing at all. She liked it that way, clean spare, no scent for memory to cling to. The living room was small but orderly. A second-hand couch, a low table, a lamp that threw a soft yellow circle on the wall. No pictures, no plants. The only decoration was a city map pinned above the table, New Orleans flattened and divided into grids. Several intersections were marked with small red circles, each one drawn with the same steady hand. Riley dropped her keys in a ceramic bowl by the door. The clink echoed more than it should have. The silence swelled back in around it. She shrugged out of her damp hoodie and draped it over a chair. Her shoulders ached with the deep, familiar fatigue that never really left, only receded. Her hands still smelled faintly of latex and soap. She flexed her fingers one knuckle at a time and watched the tendons move under the skin. The dog tag in her pocket had left a small imprint on her thigh. She took it out and set it on the table. The metal was dull from years of handling. The stamped letters had softened at the edges, but they were still legible. Hart Daniel. ROPOSUSMC. Next to the dog tag sat a small tin box. Inside lay a gold ring, the band slightly warped where heat had kissed it, and a photograph folded along creases that had grown white and fragile. She eased the photo open. 2 figures stared back. The sun behind them was too bright, washing the colors into a blur of beige and blue. Sand, sky, a tent frame. Daniel had his arm slung around her neck, pulling her in, grinning at the camera like the day was a joke and they were in on it. She was squinting, caught mid-laugh, not quite ready for the click. She traced his jawline with one thumb. Hey, she said softly into the empty room. Her voice sounded wrong in here. Too loud. She lowered it without thinking. You picked a hell of a place to tell me to be boring, she added. The memory rose unbidden and sharp. Helmand Province. A shipping container chopped into a medical bay. Heat pressing down like a hand on the back of the neck. Outside, the thump of rotors and the pop of small arms fire. Inside, Riley stood over a man whose stomach was a torn ruin. Hands, slick forearms streaked up to the elbows. The air smelled of blood and dust and the chemical sting of antiseptic that never quite won. Somebody was shouting coordinates outside. Someone else was crying without making any sound. "Riley, that is enough." Daniel's voice cut through the noise close to her ear. He was behind her, one hand on her shoulder. She did not look up. "He is talking," she said. "He is giving them positions. We keep him talking." "He is dying," Daniel said. "You have done everything you can." She pressed another dressing into place, feeling the futile pulse against her palm. "If we stabilize him, they have intel the unit gets out," she said. "If we let go now, they stay pinned." Daniel stepped in front of her, blocking her view of the casualty. His eyes were hard. "Look at him," he said. "He is done. You are not." Her breath came fast and tight in her chest. The monitors around them drew jagged green pictures and then flat lines. "Then what was the point of all of this?" she demanded. "Why are we even here if we walk away when it counts?" He reached up and gripped the back of her neck, not gently, not unkindly, anchoring her. "Listen to me," he said. "You fix what can be fixed. You do not start bargaining with the universe about what a body owes you. That is not medicine, that is bookkeeping." Outside, someone shouted "incoming" and the walls shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Daniel leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "Promise me something," he said, voice low, cutting around the chaos, instead of trying to compete. "When this is over, you are going to find a place where gunfire is a story on the radio, not a sound you count between breaths." She swallowed. "That is not how the world works," she said. "It can be," he insisted. "Promise? Promise me." She stared at him, at the stubborn line of his jaw, at the sweat on his neck, at the tiny burn scar near his ear from a training exercise that had not gone according to plan. The monitors behind him showed no more rhythm to fight for. "Fine," she said. "I promise." He smiled quick and bright. "Good," he said. "Then I can drag you out of here guilt-free." Minutes later, the blast hit. She remembered flashes more than sequence. The whistle, the shove, the fire. The sensation of flying sideways while the world turned red and black. Waking under twisted metal with Daniel's weight pinning her in place and the hot, wet pressure at her ribs where shrapnel had gone in. He was not breathing. She knew that before her fingers found his throat. His hand was still gripping her sleeve. Back in the apartment, she closed her eyes and forced the image back into the box where it lived. She folded the photo along the creases and put it away carefully, like a fragile specimen. The ring went on top. The lid clicked shut with a small final sound. Her phone buzzed on the counter screen, lighting the dark. Unknown number. For a moment, she considered letting it ring out. The caller stayed. On the third buzz, she picked up. "Hart," she said, then caught herself. "Riley." There was a pause. A man's voice came on, older, roughened by cigarettes and desert air. "You always did answer like we were still on the net," he said. She knew the voice. It pulled at a knot behind her sternum. "Colonel Briggs," she said. "That is me," he replied. "At least on the paperwork that has not been shredded yet." She leaned her hip against the counter, eyes on the map without really seeing it. "How did you get this number?" she asked. "Same way they did," he said. "I wrote it down when you thought you had vanished." Her grip on the phone tightened. "Who is they?" The colonel cleared his throat. "Gray Line Solutions," he said. "You remember that name." She did. It tasted metallic in her mouth. Private contractors. Cleanup crews that arrived after certain missions, eager to take custody of anything the military did not want to admit belonging to it. Gear, documents, people. "They are not supposed to have my file," she said. "Supposed to and do are very different lists," he said. "You lit up some boards last night, Hart. 18 wounds, no pulse alive at the end. The kind of people who funded TRU noticed things like that." "I did my job," she said. "You did your old job," he corrected. "TRU protocols right down to the manual override. Somebody saw it. Somebody talked." On the map, her eyes finally focused on one of the red circles. An old warehouse by the river. Lots of exits. She had marked it months ago before she even knew why she might need it. "They coming for me," she said. It was not a question. "They are coming to collect an asset they thought they lost," Briggs said. "Or to erase a loose end. Depends which memo they open first." "Why warn me?" she asked. There was a tired smile in his voice. "Because I sent you into that container where Daniel died," he said. "I did not ask your permission then. I am asking it now. Do what you have to do, but do not let them drag you back without you choosing it." Silence stretched between them. Somewhere through the thin apartment walls, a neighbor's television played a sitcom laugh track. The sound felt obscene. "Thanks for the courtesy," she said. "Hart," he said. "They are going to frame this as you going rogue. Using techniques you should not know. If you run it, proves them right. If you stay, it gives them a stationary target." She almost laughed. "So those are the options," she said. "Bleed or vanish." There is a third one, Wu Xuan, he said. Pick the ground. Make them come to you on your terms. The call clicked off. He did not say goodbye. Riley stared at the phone until the screen went dark. Her reflection looked back at her in the black glass eyes' shadowed jaw set. She set the phone down and walked to the map. The red circles were not random. Hospitals, shelters, abandoned structures with good sightlines, places she knew she could move through blind if she had to. Old habits from old lives given new shapes. Her fingertip rested on the circle by the river. The labels on the streets around it blurred for a moment, then sharpened again. She picked up the dog tag and closed her fist around it, the edges biting into her palm. You told me to find a place where gunfire is on the radio, she said quietly. Her voice did not waver this time. I am trying, Danny. She grabbed a backpack from the closet and started to pack. Not weapons. She did not own any anymore. A trauma kit, saline, gauze, a headlamp, a bottle of water, a clean pair of gloves. Her hands moved quickly without wasted motion, as if the layout of the bag had not changed since Helmand. Each item had a reason. Each space in the pack had a purpose. When she was done, she slung the backpack over one shoulder and looked around the apartment once more. There was nothing here she could not leave. No framed faces on the shelves, no plants to water, no letters pinned to the fridge. Just the tin box, the map, the bowl of keys. She left the box where it was. The map stayed on the wall. At the door she paused. On the other side of town, in a hospital bed under fluorescent light, Eli Mercer was listening for footsteps that never came. In a federal office, a file on Riley Hart sat open on a laptop, words killed in action, blinking against the memory of living hands. Riley turned the knob and stepped into the dim hallway. The door clicked shut behind her, soft as a promise. By the time the sun slid down behind the levees, the city had traded steam for shadow. Neon flickered on along the riverfront. Tour boats hooted tourists drifted toward the quarter. Down by the industrial stretch of the Mississippi, the lights were fewer and farther apart. Riley liked that. She crossed the tracks and followed a cracked access road that ran parallel to the water. The air smelled of mud and rust, and something sour from the warehouses that had been closed more on paper than in practice. Her backpack sat snug between her shoulders, the weight familiar. Every few steps, the dog tag in her pocket tapped against her thigh, a little reminder that she was not walking empty. The warehouse she had marked months ago loomed ahead, a squat rectangle of corrugated metal. A faded sign above the bay door still promised riverfront storage in peeling blue letters. Someone had tagged over part of it in spray paint that had long since dripped. She circled the building once before going in. The big rolling door at the front was chained but not locked properly. A side door near the loading dock hung a little crooked on its hinges. Around the back, a stairway of rusted metal climbed to a second-level door facing the water. Fire code from another lifetime had installed it. Time had neglected to remove it. 3 entrances, 1 main, 2 secondary. Plenty of exits if you knew where they were. She chose the crooked side door, tested the knob, and slipped inside. The air was cooler in here, heavy with dust and oil. Tall metal racks lined the walls, most of them empty. A few still held broken pallets and plastic wrap. In the middle of the floor, a forklift sat abandoned with its forks raised chest high, a sleeping animal in industrial yellow. Her footsteps echoed. She walked the perimeter slowly, counting strides, tracing a path between stacks and pillars. She noted where the concrete floor dipped, where the roof leaked, where shards of glass from a broken skylight glittered in the faint light. She checked sight lines from the interior toward each door, tested how long it took to cross from one to the other at a walk and at a run. Old habits. Pick the ground before someone else does. She found a small office space in one corner, glass walls looking out over the floor. The door was missing. A metal desk sat lopsided against one wall, drawers half open. She tried them, found nothing but a few loose screws and a dried pen. It would do. She set her backpack on the desk and unzipped it. Saline bags, dressings, a compact headlamp, a pair of trauma shears. She laid them out for easy reach, then took the shears and walked back to the crooked side door. The emergency bar had a rubber pad on it, cracked and flaking. She clipped a strip off, then jammed the shears into the gap between door and frame, testing how quickly it could be propped open or jammed shut. It was not perfect, it was something. Outside, a car engine whispered past. Not close, not yet. She went to the back stairwell. The metal grated under her boots. The second-level door stuck halfway open, rust gripping the hinge. She put her shoulder into it, felt it give enough that someone could squeeze through at a pinch, and left it that way. On the riverside, twilight was darker. The water was only a suggestion, the smell of it stronger than the sight. In the distance, a barge pushed downstream, lights blinking like a slow heartbeat. Riley stood there for a while listening. Far-off sirens wailed, heading somewhere else. A train horn blew. A dog barked sharp and brief. She checked her watch. The night shift at St. Augustine would be starting in less than an hour. For once, she was not on it. Headlights swept the interior of the warehouse just after full dark. They cut sharp lines through the dusty air sliding across metal racks, and the forklift and the office window. An engine turned off. Gravel crunched. Doors opened and closed in quick succession. Voices low, not joking, not nervous, just confirming. 3 at the main one around the back. Copy, no visible cameras. Remember the rules, non-lethal if possible, packages priority. They pushed the rolling door up just enough to duck under the chains rattling. 4 of them shapes in black tactical fabric body armor cut slim weapons holstered but ready. Their faces were clean-shaven, their hair regulation tidy. They moved with the confidence of men who expected the building to belong to them the moment they stepped inside. Riley watched from the office crouched behind the half wall where the glass had shattered long ago. One of them lifted a small device, waved it in a slow arc. "No signals pinging," he said. "Phone is not here." "She is here," another replied. "She has to be." The leader cupped his hands around his mouth. "Ms. Hart," he called. His voice bounced off the metal roof. "Riley Hart, we are with Gray Line Solutions. We just want to talk." Riley stayed still. "Former Naval Intelligence contract," the man continued. "We have clearance, we have transportation, and we have a very nice facility where you can tell your side of the story." The word facility scraped along her nerves. The man took a few more steps into the warehouse, turning slowly so his voice carried. "Field stabilization unit, tactical resuscitation. All of that looks messy on paper when it pops up where it should not. You know how it is. You help us clean, we help you disappear properly this time." She could see his face more clearly now. Late 30s maybe, with a grin that had too many teeth for the situation. "We are not here to hurt you," he said, "unless you make us." Riley let out a slow breath through her nose. She did not answer him. Instead, she reached up, clicked the headlamp on, and directed its narrow beam at the far corner of the warehouse away from the office. The light cut a cone through the air. One of the men saw it. "Movement southeast corner," he said. 3 of them moved toward the light guns, drawn now steps spreading in a practiced fan. The 4th stayed nearer the door, watching their backs. Riley slipped out of the office on the opposite side, moving between racks, keeping low. The headlamp sat on a broken pallet, still shining where she had left it. When the first man reached it, he nudged it with his boot. The beam swung toward him, catching his face, and for a half-second his pupils pinched. She stepped out behind him. The trauma shears were not a weapon designed for this, but they were metal and quick. She brought them down on the back of his knee, clipping the tendon just enough that his leg buckled. He went down with a choked curse. His gun clattered away, skidding under the forklift. "Contact," he managed. The next man spun toward the noise. She grabbed the saline bag from her pack and slapped it hard into his face, the plastic bursting. Sterile water sprayed into his eyes and nose, blinding and choking him. He staggered back, coughing, wiping at his face. The third one raised his weapon. She was already moving. She ducked behind the forklift, felt concrete chip near her shoulder as a round hit the floor. She slid on her side, using the forklift as the cover, and kicked the dropped gun further under, out of reach. Behind them by the main door, the 4th man shouted, "Hold fire! Package alive! Repeat, package alive!" Their training slowed them. That half-second of hesitation was enough. Riley grabbed the first man's radio from his chest rig and ripped it free. His hand clawed at her forearm, strong and clumsy. She drove her elbow into his throat, not enough to crush enough to make him let go. She darted back toward the side door, the one with the crooked hinge. As she passed the row of shelves, she grabbed a roll of plastic wrap and flung it behind her. It unfurled in the air, tangling around legs and boots. The blinded man went down with a heavy thud, cursing in a language that did not require translation. Bullets stopped. They did not know where she was. They did not know how much they could fire without changing the mission from extraction to termination. At the side door, she jammed the trauma shears into the frame, twisting hard. Metal shrieked. The door stuck just open enough for one person to slide through. "She's at the east exit," someone shouted. Riley pushed through sideways, scraping her shoulder, and came out into the night. The air tasted damp and cool. Her heart thumped, not as a sprinting panic, but as an old measured drum. She ran for the back stairway, boots slipping slightly on the gravel. Behind her, the side door rattled as someone slammed into it. On the stairs, she took each step in a long stride, the metal ringing under her. At the top, she squeezed through the narrow gap in the rusted door and turned, planting both feet against it, shoving it tighter. Voices rose inside the warehouse, frustrated, muffled. She could hear them trying the main exit, now chains clinking. She let out a breath she had not known she was holding. The river stretched ahead, black and wide. Lights blinked on the opposite bank. The warehouse roof gave her a narrow alley of shadow to follow along the side of the building until she reached the far end. A chain-link fence separated the lot from the rail yard beyond. The top of it was bent in one section as if someone had already tested its strength. She did not hesitate. She tossed her backpack over, then climbed the metal, biting into her palms. On the other side, she dropped into a crouch, listened, and then moved. By the time Greyline got the side door open, gasping in fresher air, she was gone. They swept the area anyway. Their leader cursed quietly, then noticed something on the floor near the pallet where the headlamp had been. A small black device the size of a wallet had come free when she ripped the radio from the first man's rig. It was not standard issue. The blinking green light and the port for a data cable suggested it held more than local chatter. He picked it up, weighed it in his hand, then slipped it into his own pocket, not quite trusting anyone else with it yet. He did not notice that a second device, a backup kept in a lower pouch, had skidded into the shadow beside a support column when the man fell. Hours later, that was the one Riley would fish out fingers searching in the dark, as she passed the warehouse on a different path, keeping low along the fence. The hospital lights looked gentler that night, even from the street. St. Augustine stood up against the sky, solid and square. Riley pulled the hood of her sweatshirt lower and slipped through the staff entrance badge, long since tucked away. People coming off shift barely spared her a glance. They were too tired to care who was going in. Upstairs, the ICU hummed with a different kind of tension. The lighting was softer, the sounds more controlled. Monitors beeped at regular intervals, a choir of small mechanical hearts. Eli Mercer lay propped up slightly, eyes half open. His face was less gray now, but it still had the waxy look of someone whose body was not convinced it belonged here. He turned his head when she stepped into the doorway. "You again," he rasped. His voice had sand in it. His tongue moved like it was too big for his mouth. "You remember me," she said. "Hard to forget hands that deep in your chest," he said. "You a ghost or an actual person this time?" She walked to the side of the bed, keeping her hands where he could see them. "Tonight, I am just someone who needs a favor," she said. He studied her face as if matching it to fragments of pain and fog. "They told me your name," he said. "Said you pulled off a miracle. I said no. Miracles are random. You looked like you had done it before." She did not answer that. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the device from the warehouse, a compact slab of black plastic with one small port and a faint scratch along one edge. She set it on the bedside table, close enough that he could reach it if he tried. "What is that?" he asked. "Evidence," she said. "Communications manifests whatever Greyline did not want anyone to see. It pings to a network that funded things we were told to forget." "Why give it to me?" he asked. "You have legs. You can walk it out of here yourself." "You are the reason they noticed me," she said. 18 holes still breathing. That was not supposed to happen. He gave a short, pained laugh. "You are welcome," he said. "I figured you might still know people who know what to do with something like this," she said. "People with enough clearance and just enough conscience to be dangerous." He stared at the device as if it might sprout teeth. "You are assuming I'm on your side," he said. "I am assuming you prefer not to get shot again because some program thinks you are a loose end," she said. His gaze flicked to her, then sharp and clear. "You are not wrong," he said. He reached for the device, handshaking a little, and closed his fingers around it. "I know a guy," he said. "He's annoying and stubborn and works for people I do not trust, but he hates loose ends more than anything." "Sounds perfect," she said. She stepped back from the bed. "Heart," he said. She paused. "Thank you," he said, "for not letting them call it." Her throat tightened. She swallowed it down. "Get some sleep, Mercer," she said. "You are going to need it." She slipped out of the room as quietly as she had come in. The ICU door sighed shut behind her, sealing the soft light and beeping monitors away. Later that night, Marcus Doyle sat alone in his office, the overhead light off the glow from his laptop enough. The device from Eli sat next to the keyboard, a small, unremarkable shape. He had plugged it in against his better judgment. The screen filled with directories labeled in dry bureaucratic language. Contractor logs, medical procurement, true field reports. The words made his stomach clench. He clicked one folder open and began to read. The warehouse sat 3 blocks from the river, tucked behind a row of shuttered storefronts that still had charity posters taped to their windows. The sign over the loading bay read Gulf Relief Medical Donations in friendly blue letters. Someone had swept the front step. Marcus did not trust any building that tried that hard to look harmless. He stood beside Priya on the cracked concrete, both of them zipped into windbreakers, badges clipped visible. The air smelled of damp cardboard and exhaust. A police cruiser idled at the curb, its lights off, engine ticking. "You sure about this address?" Priya asked. Marcus held up a printed sheet. Names, dates, order numbers, all with the same routing code. The device did not stutter, he said. "Every order tied to TRU and Greyline runs through this shell." A uniformed officer finished cutting the padlock, stepped back, and hauled the bay door up. It rattled along its track, letting stale air spill out. Inside looked exactly like the sign promised. Pallets rose in neat stacks, shrink-wrapped and labeled for clinics in Haiti, Honduras, the Gulf Coast. Rows of cardboard boxes bore stickers with little red crosses and logos for aid organizations Marcus had seen on fundraisers and tote bags. He walked down the central aisle, fingers brushing box edges. Gloves, gauze, IV kits. All of it could be exactly what it claimed to be. He stopped at a crate with no external label, only a stenciled number. "Here," he said. The officer pried it open. Inside white boxes sat snug in foam. No labels, no instructions, only barcodes and a tiny printed note. Property of Defense, Health Coordination Office. Priya picked one up, turning it in her hand. "These are not for free clinics," she said. Marcus nodded toward the back. "Keep looking, Kisa," he said. They found the hidden room behind a stack of pallets and a false wall that pivoted just enough on a concealed hinge. It smelled of ammonia and cold metal. 2 hospital beds stood against one wall, portable monitors at their heads. The screens were dark, but when Marcus hit a power button, they did not show the usual brand logo. Instead, a familiar crest flashed, one he had seen in the TRU files. Navy Medical Corps, Field Stabilization Interface, login required. "That confirm it for you?" he asked. Priya did not answer. Her jaw was tight. Shelving units lined the opposite wall, loaded with clear ampules of colorless liquid and syringes, preloaded with something that looked like water and felt like a threat. "None of this exists on any manifest," she said. "Yet here it is," Marcus replied. He heard the faintest shift of air behind him before he heard the voice. "You are late," Riley said. They both turned. She stood just inside the false wall, hands visible at her sides. No backpack now. Just jeans, a plain jacket, hair pulled back. She looked smaller in this clinical space, but her eyes were the same as the ones in the photograph on his laptop. Priya's hand twitched toward her holster before she caught herself. "How did you get in here?" she asked. "Same way you did, Riley said. "Someone left the door open." Marcus took a step toward her. "You knew about this place," he said. "I knew there would be a place like this," she said. "I did not have the address until you plugged that toy in." He glanced at the ampules, the monitors, the beds. "This is where they kept the veins flowing, Gitchell," he said. Riley's gaze traveled over the shelves, the equipment, the sterile beds with their perfectly folded sheets. "TRU started in rooms like this," she said quietly. "Not on paper, on rigged beds and hangars and containers and school gymnasiums nobody needed anymore." She walked to one of the monitors and touched the screen with 2 fingers as if checking a pulse. "They told us we were buying time," she said. "Give them 10 more minutes and the squad gets out of the valley. Keep him awake long enough and a bomb squad finds the device. Stabilize, extract, interrogate, release. Efficient." Marcus listened. The hum of the fluorescent lights above their heads sounded suddenly loud. "When you were in that world," he said, "did you ever think about where the equipment went when everyone pretended the program ended?" She looked at him, tired and clear-eyed. "Thought about it every night I tried to sleep," she said. "Looks like they just changed the labels." Priya lifted one of the ampules, held it to the light. "You know what this is," she said. Riley nodded once. "Coagulant blend," she said. "Boosts clotting in people whose blood has been diluted or suppressed or messed with by too many drugs. We used it when we needed someone to stay alive through something their body had decided to quit on." "Like a witness with 18 holes," Marcus said. Riley did not flinch. "Like that?" she said. Priya set the ampule down carefully. "Whatever this is, pal," she said, "it is not going to disappear quietly." "No," Riley said. "It is not." The conference room smelled like new paint and recycled air. The walls were an unremarkable beige. A row of framed photographs showed floods, hurricanes, field hospitals, in far-flung places. The table was long and polished, surrounded by people in suits who had learned how to keep their faces still. Riley sat in the middle of one side, a small microphone in front of her. She wore a black jacket and a white shirt that did not quite fit, borrowed from someone else. Under the collar against her skin, the dog tag lay cool. There was no jury, no cameras, just a court reporter with fingers poised over a stenography machine and a handful of staffers ready to pretend they were taking notes on their tablets while they checked messages. A woman at the head of the table cleared her throat. "Lieutenant Hart," she began. "Ms. Hart," Riley said. I am not a lieutenant anymore. The woman inclined her head. Ms. Hart, she corrected. Thank you for appearing. We understand you were part of a classified medical program known as the Tactical Resuscitation Unit. Yes, Riley said. Can you describe its purpose in your own words? Riley let her gaze rest on the table on the reflected strip of light that ran down its center. They told us we were there to close the gap between battlefield medicine and intelligence, she said. Our job was to keep people alive long enough to matter. In what way, the woman asked. In the way that mattered to command, Riley said. Information, codes, positions, names. We were given tools to push bodies past the point they would have stopped on their own, so someone somewhere could make decisions with a clearer picture. She did not raise her voice. She did not dramatize. The words themselves did that much. Did these people consent? Another man at the table asked. Sometimes, she said. Sometimes they were ours. Sometimes they were not. Sometimes they were too busy drowning in their own blood to say anything at all. At what point did you begin to question the program, Ficus? The woman asked. Riley thought of the container and helmet of Daniel's hand still gripping her sleeve. When I realized I was thinking in numbers, she said. How many minutes of life equals how many lives saved? How many broken bones for how much intel? Medicine is supposed to stop the bleeding. We were being asked to decide who was worth bleeding for. That is not a calculation I should be doing. Her fingers curled slightly on the table. We are not accountants, she said. We are supposed to stitch people back together, not assign them value. The court reporter's keys clacked softly, capturing each word. Is that why you left, someone asked. She gave a small nod. That she said. And the fact that my husband died getting me out of a kill zone I should never have been ordered into. He used his last breath to ask me to stop doing this work. I kept that promise for years, until your program came knocking on my hospital doors. A quiet shifted around the table. Some of the faces remained impassive. One older man looked down at his notes as if the ink had changed. Later, Eli Mercer sat where she had sat, one hand on the table to steady himself. He wore a shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, Scar's visible hospital ID still clipped to the collar. You were the primary victim of the shooting at the Claiborne parking lot, the woman at the head said. Is that right, Lieutenant Mercer? That is right, he said. You were not supposed to survive, another member said. So I am told to ask, he replied. They asked him about the night, about what he remembered. He spoke plainly, the parking lot, the flash, the confusion, the cold. Then there were hands, he said. Someone talking like I was already on a helicopter, not panicking, just bossy as hell. A few people smiled in spite of themselves. They tell me she broke protocol, he went on. Used drugs she was not supposed to have, moves she should not know. Maybe she did. I did not care then. If you had been where I was, you would not either. The concern, one of the men said carefully, is that uncontrolled use of those techniques outside military oversight creates risk. Eli nodded slowly. It does, he said. So does leaving programs like TRU in the dark, where no one sees what you are asking medics to do. He leaned forward, eyes on the line of faces. All I know is a nurse with a tired face and a steady voice decided I was worth trying for, when everyone else had stopped counting. If that frightens you more than the people who built rooms like the one you found, maybe you need to adjust what you are scared of. There was no burst of applause. That was not how these rooms worked. But one of the staffers stopped typing for a moment. The older man who had looked down before rubbed at his temple and did not look at anyone. The decisions did not arrive in one dramatic vote. They came in memos and closed-door briefings and signatures at the bottom of pages, marked restricted. Contracts with Gray Line were paused, pending review. Funding lines that had fed into the shell charity shrank then dried. A program name changed status from active to suspended in a database that did not have a public face. In Marcus's inbox, an internal message appeared. TRU-related operations, temporary halt authorized. Further action under review. It was not enough. It was not nothing. He met Riley outside the building where she had just told a room full of officials about the worst pieces of her career. The sky was a flat steel color. The wind funneled down the government district street, snapping the corner of a flag against its pole. People in suits hurried past callers, up their conversations a blur of acronyms. Riley had her jacket zipped, hands in her pockets. Her shoulders were squared, but there was a looseness around her eyes that had not been there before. "You did not have to say as much as you did," so Marcus said. She shrugged one shoulder. "They already knew enough to be dangerous," she said. "Might as well give them enough to be responsible." "Some of them will try, say," he said. "Some will not." "That has always been the ratio," she said. He walked beside her for a few steps. "We put a dent in it," he said. "Programs like that, they do not collapse. They stall. That stall saves people under the machine." She looked at him. "You practice those lines in front of a mirror?" she asked. "Only on the bad days," he said. A corner of her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Close." She stopped near the revolving door that led back into the building. The glass reflected both of them, slightly warped. "I do not want to be anyone's symbol," she said. "I just want to go back to a place where the blood on my hands belongs to people I can see for reasons I can live with." "St. Augustine," he said. She nodded. "They offered me shifts again," she said. "Night shift, same chaos, different ghosts." Marcus looked past her through the glass at the security guards and metal detectors and badges. "You walked out of one war chair," he said. "You can walk into whatever room you want now." She touched the dog tag under her collar, an unconscious gesture, then let her hand fall. "One room at a time," she said. She turned away from the government building and started down the steps toward a street that would lead back to the hospital, where monitors waited to fall into their own small rhythms and doors would keep opening and closing. The south hallway at St. Augustine had always been a thoroughfare, not a destination. People hurried through it on their way to radiology or the elevators, eyes on charts, minds elsewhere. The wall there was blank drywall scuffed at ankle height, marked where gurney wheels had clipped it. One morning it was not blank anymore. Riley noticed it as she came in through the staff entrance badge clipped to her pocket again. The night shift had not started yet, but the day crew was still thick on the floor, voices carrying down the corridor. A small knot of people had gathered by the wall. Nurses in patterned tops, a respiratory tech, one of the security guards, a janitor still holding a mop. They stood in a loose semicircle, not touching, not talking much. On the wall, in a simple black frame, someone had mounted a rectangle of fabric. Marine green, the sleeve of a uniform cuff, neatly folded. A patch sat near the shoulder seam, the eagle globe and anchor stitched in gold. Beneath it, under glass, a slim metal hook held a gold ring cleaned and polished, catching the fluorescent light. Below the frame centered a small plaque read in plain black letters. "For those who stitched us back when the world had already given up St. Augustine night shift." Riley stopped a few steps away. Her heart did not lurch. It eased as if something she had been bracing against had finally arrived and proved lighter than expected. Dr. Keller stood near the edge of the group, arms crossed loosely. He glanced over, saw her, and gave a small nod. "This was not my idea," he said, "but I signed the form." "Whose idea was it?" she asked. "Some of the nurses," he replied, "and a guy from ICU who is not good at staying in bed." As if cued, Eli Mercer appeared at the end of the hall, walking slowly, one hand on the rail. A physical therapist hovered behind him, frowning in case he overdid it. Eli ignored the frown. He stopped beside Riley, a little short of breath but upright. "You see, they made you famous," he said. Riley watched the light slide along the ring. She could picture it on Daniel's hand, the way it had always sat slightly skewed because he never stopped moving. "They did not put my name on it," she said. "That is the point," Eli said. "It is for everyone who ever took a chance when the chart said not to bother." "That is a lot of people," she said. "Then it is a good thing the wall is long," he replied. He reached up, resting two fingers briefly against the glass just below the ring. It was not a salute. It was more like checking that the world was solid. Around them, people began to drift away, pulled back into the tide of tasks. The janitor leaned his mop against the wall and took a photo with his phone before he went. Keller squeezed Riley's shoulder once, then turned toward the nurses' station. In a small office down the corridor, HR had papers waiting. The woman behind the desk wore reading glasses and a cardigan with tiny embroidered flowers at the cuffs. Her computer screen glowed with forms. "You sure you want nights again?" she asked Riley. "We could work you into days if you want something easier on your body." Riley thought of the quiet hours between midnight and sunrise, the way the city breathed differently, then the way the ER seemed more honest. "Nights are fine," she said. The HR woman slid a packet across the desk. "Reinstatement," she said. "Technically, it is not rehiring since you never were officially suspended. We just had to sort out the whole federal mess. Her smile was apologetic. I'm told you broke policy more than once, she added. I'm also told that if anyone gives you grief about it, they will have to explain themselves to a lot of grateful people. Riley picked up the pen. It felt heavier than it looked. You can write whatever you want in your notes, she said. Already did, the woman said. I wrote, keeps people alive, do not lose. Riley signed. The curves of her name looked steadier than they had when she applied the first time. When she stepped back into the hallway, Eli was still leaning near the frame, catching his breath. All official now, he asked. Apparently, she said. So what, you are mine again, he said. Oh, he said. On the clock, I mean. If I fall over, I get you. You are discharged in 2 days, she said. Try not to fall over on my shift. His grin flashed and then softened. I'm glad you came back, he said. She did not say thank you. Instead, she nodded toward the main doors. You get a ride home lined up, she asked. Marcus is sending someone, he said. He is buried in files. Good, she said. If he forgets to eat, tell him the cafeteria still owes him for that time he scared the volunteers. Eli laughed, then winced and put a hand to his side. Still hurts when I do that, he said. Then stop doing that, she replied. He watched her a moment, his gaze steady. You look different, he said, lighter. I wrote something down and let other people decide what to do with it, she said. Feels like dropping a pack. That evening, the sky bruised purple over the city. Streetlights flickered on, one by one. At St. Augustine, the day shift clocked out with tired waves and half-finished conversations, and the night crew filtered in, trading jokes and complaints in the locker room. Riley pulled on her navy blue scrub top, slid her badge clip into place, and tied her hair back. She checked her pockets instinctively, pen, small notebook, alcohol swabs, a folded piece of tape with her initials. The dog tag lay under her shirt, resting against her collarbone with its familiar cool weight. At the nurse's station, the whiteboard had been wiped clean and rewritten. Names of patients, room numbers, color-coded marks for who needed what. The charge nurse for the night, a wiry man named Luis, lifted a hand as she approached. Look who decided we were worth the trouble, he said. That or I ran out of other places to be, she said. He pointed to the assignment column. Room 3 is yours, Poche, he said. Plus 6, 8, and 9 once they fill. We have 3 admits already on the way in from triage, and I'm hearing rumors about a multi-vehicle on the I-10. Busy, she said. Good word for it, he replied. You good. She nodded. I am good. The night began the way most nights did. A little boy with his fingers smashed in a car door, eyes wild, until she showed him how the X-ray machine worked and asked him to count the bones with her. An elderly woman whose heart skipped and fluttered, who calmed when Riley talked to her about the garden she missed. A construction worker whose blood pressure could have powered half the block stubborn about medication until Riley laid out the numbers on a scrap of paper and let him see them himself. Threads, each one small, each one needing attention. Between rooms, Riley moved with the measured pace of someone who had learned not to waste steps. She washed her hands until the skin went faintly pink, dried them, and did it again. She charted at the med station, the soft clack of keys blending with the background percussion of beeps and footsteps. Near midnight there was a lull. She stood for a moment at the threshold of the main trauma bay, lights turned down, but ready. The gurney in the center sat empty sheet, crisp and white. The overhead lamp was dark. The room was a held breath. Behind her, the rest of the ER murmured and hummed. Ahead of her, through the glass doors, the city glittered restless. She touched the dog tag lightly, pressing it against her chest. You told me to live where gunfire is a story, she thought. It is still here, but so am I. She stepped fully into the bay, checked the crash cart, straightened a tray that did not need straightening, then turned back to the hall. The overhead speaker crackled. Incoming trauma, Kyo, the operator said. Multi-vehicle collision on the interstate 3 minutes out. All available staff to receiving. The sound rolled down the corridor, snapping everyone to attention. Conversations cut off mid-syllable. Chairs scraped. Gloves snapped. Luis looked up from the desk. Showtime, he said. Riley pulled on a fresh pair of gloves. The powder clung to her skin, a familiar dry grit. Her fingers flexed once, finding their own rhythm. She took her place beside the doors of room 3, where the gurney would roll in. Monitors already stood ready, cables coiled like waiting vines. The air smelled of antiseptic and anticipation. In the distance outside, sirens grew louder. Riley took a breath that filled her lungs all the way, no hitch, no war ghosts riding it. Her heartbeat matched the approaching wail, then settled into its own pace. Eli's voice echoed from earlier. You look different, lighter. She believed him. The automatic doors at the ambulance base slid open. The first stretcher burst through, paramedics talking fast. Blood glass, gasoline, fear, all of it coming in on rolling wheels. Riley stepped forward, hands already reaching. St. Augustine. she said to the patient on the gurney, her tone calm and sure. "You are here. We have you." The monitors began to chirp as the leads connected, adding their steady notes to the night's rough music. In room 3, under bright lights with nurses moving and doctors calling out orders, Riley worked. The stitches she placed now did not have to answer to any hidden ledger. They held skin together, muscle to muscle, lives to lives. Outside, the city kept breathing. Inside, so did they. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.